A very good morning and welcome to the dialogue this Saturday morning, and we are concluding a very busy and a very eventful week. My name is Simapolo. At this time we sit to look at issues that made headlines through the week, issues of national importance, and the panel will be discussing matters around security, around human rights, but also looking at the big stories that made rounds across the region. On the show this morning, we have Dr. Gerard Werihe Wanzara, a resident panelist, and he is the head of research and civic engagement at Africa Leadership Institute, an NGO that does oversight on parliament and other government bodies. We are also blessed to have Honorable Mugore Mauku David Stephen. He is the Member of Parliament representing Kabweri County in Chibuku District, but in the 11th Parliament. We'll be looking at several issues this week. The issues around human rights took center stage again, following concerns of abductions. Some others call it arrests, and that is a contradiction. Possibly we'll be looking into whether these are real arrests or they are abductions as alleged. These issues went straight to Parliament as one MP, Honorable Zake, Member of Parliament for Mityana Municipality, cunningly raised this issue. I say cunningly because he was criticized for bringing this issue through a different procedure, as not as how it should be. It is prescribed in the rules and procedures that manage Parliament. We'll also be looking at parliamentary business. Parliament this time round is receiving many more bills being returned from the President. The work that is being sent to the President is being returned to Parliament, and we ask, is parliamentary business still on track? And be also giving that matter a good time. But like I said, the issue of human rights will also be our main topic. But let's first introduce our guest this morning, David Mugore Stephen. Please, you are most welcome to the show this morning.
I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank my colleague, Doctor, and you who has organized this dialogue, and also greet all our people in the country and in the region, but most especially those people who voted for me to be a member of Parliament, that I can come here and articulate issues on behalf of Ugandans, but also as a member of Parliament. Please stay tuned and watch while we discuss the number of ideas before us and as have been presented.
I thought you may share a word on what is happening in the workers' fraternity.
Yes, that one is something simple. You know, when trade unions are fighting, somebody thinks it's like a war, but they will continue calling themselves brothers and sisters. In the recent past, many people wanted to know what was going on. But for me, as a disciplined trade unionist, I don't come to the media before things are sorted out. We had an issue of the Secretary General stepping down and the Treasurer General also resigning because they have other permanent jobs. The Secretary General is now a member of Parliament, and the Treasurer General is a Speaker of a district, and our Deputy Treasurer General passed on in a motor accident. So these positions needed to be replaced. But the issue was that some of the leadership didn't want a replacement. How? They thought the deputies should just take over. And there was obviously no deputy for the position of treasurer. The deputy had also passed on, and the treasurer has resigned. So the General Council had to replace, but they were saying the time is not ready. And yet, according to the law, the principal persons of any trade union are the Secretary General and the Treasurer General. Those are the registered officers by law. If they are not there, then that organization cannot work. Not a chairman general. I'm the deputy chairman general of NOTU. But I cannot operate without the secretariat. And the secretariat, the head of the secretariat, in fact, the CEO of an organization is the secretary general or the general secretary, not the chairman general. Chairman general just does supervisory work of. So
as it stands,
Brother Owere had a lot of issues, and he had adjourned 2 meetings prematurely. After his chairman's communication, he would adjourn the meeting. So we wanted to show him that he's not the powerhouse. The powerhouse is in the General Council. And we suspended him.
Okay.
And
he went to court.
No, he has even withdrawn that matter from court. You cannot take a trade union to court. On a trade union matter, it is a waste of time. You can't manage. Once a General Council has taken a decision, or a National Executive
So you are now an interim chair?
Yes, just interim chairperson as we sort out his problem.
Okay.
And in fact, I have just come today from Ginger because I've been head of delegation of the Tourism, Trade and Industry Committee handling the issue of sugar, the skyrocketing prices for sugar and the problems the outgrowers are having. That is, I've just come this morning, but my colleagues have had several meetings at the ministry with both the warring factions. And we're saying that, okay, because Owere was not heard, we can give him time to be heard. But I can assure you that the General Council will meet, give him time, still extend his suspension, and look at. The only thing he can do is to plead. If he pleads, I'm not interested in being Chairman General of NOTU, because I'm also a member of Parliament. I can, by the way, because it's not a permanent job. But I'm not interested at the moment being Chairman General, following the number of aspects that I'm having. But obviously, to create order, that I will do, to create order. Because for him, he has failed to create order at all.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. Let's hope all goes well, and the workers' fraternity will be at peace.
They will certainly be at peace, because what we're telling the ministry, which they have agreed, is that let the persons we elected in those principal positions, the Secretary General, the Treasurer General, and the Deputy, begin work. The issue of the Chairman General, the General Council will further see whether we pardon Owere or we do not pardon. If we do not pardon, I will continue being the acting Chairman General, though I am the Deputy Chairman General. So you just act in that position. Only that.
Thank you so much, Honorable David Stephen. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. And Dr. Gerard, speak to our viewers before we proceed.
Good morning, our viewers. It's a happy morning. Always glad to be here to discuss matters that affect us and the region. I'm also privileged this morning to have the Honorable Mugole, my neighbor from Chibuku. Yeah, so it's really good to have knowledgeable people, especially on cooperatives. I follow them, and sometimes I admire to be a trade unionist, but I've not yet found that opportunity to be part of it. But I also greet specifically people of Bubutu Town Council in Wulo County East. They are always there watching. N'abantu baife wanekamuli na musita mbala muisa.
I actually wanted to ask Mugole, I don't know, Trade unions of the 60s, actually, 50s, 60s, were very, very vibrant in shaping the politics of the country. But looks like this time things have changed. One comment, Mugoli.
Me, myself? Yeah, like 2-3 comments. The founding trade unions was, first of all, there was no trade union movement at all. So when they came in the 60s, there was a lot of hegemony in the workplace. And you know by then it was white rule. So when these people, like the union I've been heading, I've been the CEO for Uganda Hotels Union. The founders of this union was Wanyama and Odwori. This union was formed in the Lake Vic Hotel. That's the first hotel in this country. 1957. Those two younger men were murdered and their bodies thrown on Lake Victoria. So the spirit at that time was very strong. It was like a fighting slavery.
What happened?
What happened? Why they were killed?
No. Why today? Why is it that today unions are not as strong as those of the 50s and 80s and 60s?
Politicians realize that when you make a trade union very strong, it can take over. So there are always machinations of how they can weaken the union. For example, government unions were very strong. What governments did was to do liberalization. So, like the Uganda hotels I'm talking about, all Uganda hotel union workers were government workers because hotels belonged to government. So all these institutions after the structured adjustment programs, where all workers were laid off and workers became employees of private entities, you could not be that strong. You can see a union like nurses or medical, if they went on strike, the government gets paralyzed.
Teachers union.
Yes. Hotels union, if it went on strike during that time when all hotels were under government, it would paralyze. But now, if Sheraton goes on strike, Serena is working. So that disintegration,
The liberalization policy,
yes,
the liberalization policy weakened unions.
The unions throughout the world.
Okay.
And the strong employers who are stronger than government. For example,
you talked
Walmart. Walmart is a company which is stronger than a government. Even this budget is bigger than the government of Uganda, but it's just a company. So such a company, fighting it becomes always very difficult. It is in America, it doesn't want unions. But while in Africa here, we did a wonderful program under the Union Network when they were buying Massmart under the Competition Act of South Africa. We put a step that they will not buy Massmart unless they agree, the workers of Massmart who are already members of the union, to continue with the union. So whereas Walmart does not recognize unions in America, here, because they bought Massmart, they have to recognize the union.
I'm interested in your session that that government intervention weakened unions. Is it the case with the workers' unions? What is going on inside the workers' union today?
No, not necessarily that. What I was saying is that the structured adjustment programs that were brought about by government, number one, caused workers were disintegrated and they were removed from permanent and pensionable jobs to contract jobs. So a person who is on contract cannot agitate so much because he knows at the end of the contract he may lose that particular contract.
It won't be renewed.
It won't be renewed. So that is how the trade union somehow. But again, the other one is that the number of members of trade unions are now very many also. With the collective, but I can tell that in the entire hotel sector, hotel tourism sector, we have 260 collective bargaining agreements. 260.
Yes.
Almost every hotel we have a recognition.
Which is not good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Okay.
To mean that workers are stable.
Workers are organized
what has
in
now,
their own
people
enclaves.
organized. What has now caused an issue with the recent COVID pandemic.
Okay. Dr. Gerard, do we miss workers' unions in the push for equality, push for better social services, and push for better service delivery?
Yeah, we do. I will take the example of South Africa, where the workers' union is very strong. It has a very strong contribution it does in respect to the politics of South Africa and the changes that take place. So every time they threaten that we are going to get out of the coalition with the, they even have, I think, a workers' party. Within ANC as a coalition. ANC, they always threaten, if you don't do that, then we shall go and join the National Democratic Alliance. So you find that because of that force, there are always some changes. In our neighborhood, you have heard of Mzee Tumbo. Atwoli. Atwoli, every election, you can make a choice. Like this election, he was with Raila Odinga. And then he said, for us, we believe this is the one who can push. But in Uganda's case, it's quite different. Of course, just like also it is with cooperatives, trade unions are also infiltrated. I cannot rule out that one. And like he said, when you know that the government will not be interested in seeing a very strong union, and that would actually bring a gap in our politics. And the politics is to be issue driven, because such groups like trade unions, like cooperatives, they bring in issue driven politics. But in the absence of these organized groups that have issues, that's when you find people emerging with no idea of which direction to take the country. So there is something we miss. Definitely. There is something we miss.
But let's go to our topics for discussion this morning. This is The Dialogue. My name is Timapolo. And I said it was a very eventful week. But let's cross borders briefly and make comments on what happened in Kenya. President William Ruto suspended the 4 commissioners who did not endorse his win in the August elections, presidential elections. And a response from his arch rival in the previous presidential election, the Honorable Raila Odinga, was that Ruto is now starting up on a plan to reach the next election. That is why he's suspending these 4 commissioners. Commissioner Juliana Chelera, Justice Wanyekwa, Irene Masiti, and Francis Wanderi were suspended. And I need a comment from both of you here. And another comment I will seek from you is the exchange between Rwandan President General Paul Kagame and Felix Tshisekedi of DRC. You know what is happening between the two countries. One are choosing the other of trying to undermine and to undermine the politics of the other. And President Kagame this week said Tshisekedi is actually prolonging the war so as to delay the next presidential elections. So he's actually prolonging his stay in power. One comment from the Honorable Doctor.
I think let me start with the Kenya. Where the elections take place, yes, they took place. Were those commissioners part of the commission? Yes, they were. Did they act independent as required by the law? No, they did not. They clearly sided with the candidate who eventually lost the election as in the opposition. Now, if you have already portrayed your character as a partisan person, then you do not have that moral authority to preside over any election where this other candidate this other group you don't like, openly don't like, is going to contest. in that election. So if I was maybe part of the commissioners, I would have swallowed the pride and I said, let me resign.
Oh.
But one thing I want to commend President Ruto about is that he knows that he does not have power to outrightly sack the commissioners. So the matter had to be brought to Parliament.
The tribunal now.
And then it has been sent to the tribunal where he appointed a judge so that these people can be given a fair hearing. But to me, as an independent observer, I think Kenya needs to reconstitute the Electoral Commission. So they need to because they do not have the moral authority to run another election.
Luckily for them, it is not the president to elect to appoint directly.
Absolutely, they have that opportunity. It's not like us here that a person who is going to be a candidate directly appoints everybody. At least they can nominate names, and then there will be a public hearing. If you have any problem with any of the proposals, you can say this one does not qualify to be on the commission. But if it's for them to stay in office, it's not in order.
They would have resigned. That's what.
If I was the one of them, I would have looked for something else to do.
Honorable Muguri, your take?
Yeah, my take is very simple. The 4 commissioners were partial. They were not impartial in this election. And the action they did was political. Because they came to address a press before even the election. In fact, the act of those 4 commissioners could cause turmoil in Kenya. So whether President Ruto or Raila, none of those 4 commissioners is fit to continue to be in the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
Because whether with the Raila, then it will be known that these are commissioners who are going to side with Raila in any eventuality or in any upcoming election. Either because that's a permanent electoral commission. Either for by elections that may come due to court cases that are in court, or in the event that one of the MPs or otherwise either dies or there is need for any replacement, then these commissioners have sides already.
You agree with the doctor that possibly they should have resigned?
Really coming to that. So whether it is Ruto, whether it is Raila, for them they are already unfit to be in the commission. And now that the chairman of the commission, his term is over. So those are now 5 commissioners who have issues. One, the term is over, has to exit. These 4 have public issues in that their credibility was lost. The only thing that can save the IBEC of Kenya is reconstitution of a commission.
The whole commission.
In any case, all of them to be removed and be given other opportunities. And for Ruto, if you are somebody who knows you are going to be elected in the next 5 years, he is doing the right thing to start early, because you can't have such people to be part of the commission that you are going to be subjected again to.
The right thing, but in his interest.
Not in his interest. In fact, for me here, I'm saying, because that's why I said, whether it was Ruto or Raila, the commissioners who have shown partiality in an election do not need to continue being members of the commission. So it is not only in his interest, but also in the interest of the country. Since he's not the one who appoints those commissioners, then let the body that really nominates these commissioners reconstitute, but without these ones. And I'm very sure the judge who has been put, his recommendation, according to the public purview, they will have to remove those commissioners.
Okay, Dr. Gerard, just close to DRC and the tensions between Rwanda and DRC.
It is really unfortunate that a president of a brotherly country, as I would call it, because we are now all in the EAC. When we were admitting DRC, we were saying, you know, the bigger, the better. We're increasing market, we are bringing integration of our people in terms of culture, and having bigger economy together, big purchasing power. But if we begin condemning a president who has a troubled country that is using rebellion in order to extend his stay in power, I think it's uncalled for. First of all, some of us are sympathetic to the fact that Rwanda has an existential threat caused by the forces for the liberation of Rwanda that operate in the territory where the M23 are. Probably Rwanda, the only way to defend itself is to ensure that there is a proxy in that area that monitors to ensure that forces for the liberation of Rwanda are not able to strengthen themselves and strike Rwanda. So now, I think the focus, just like they were discussing even a ceasefire in Angola, would be on what are the issues. Are the FD, Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, there? Yes, they do exist. Are the M23 fighters there? Yes. Are the other ones Hutu? They are. Are they hostile to the Tutsi administration in Congo? Yes, it's true. So now, now it would start with identifying the causes, the underlying causes. But also the challenge that I'm seeing is that the government of Congo is finding it so hard to admit the threat that these other people poses to Rwanda. And yet it's also an issue. So I think because of the absence of the state there, some of the characters within the forces for the liberation of Rwanda manipulate the Kinshasa government and they say we are citizens and we are being fought by foreigners. But also the fact is that there are also two Banyamulenge who are Tutsi-leaning citizens of Congo. So I think as a regional EAC government, the presidents need to be serious. For me, I will actually condemn even what's going on in Uganda because, for Uganda's case, whereas the president says we are pro-peace, we have the generals like Kereru saying we can join the East African standby force to fight if the M23 do not disarm and observe ceasefire and disarm. The other high-ranking generals who are tweeting saying this is a joke, you cannot defeat. So it's a contradiction. It's a contradiction. So what do I see there? That there are different groups, even some leaders probably, who are not serious about ending that conflict. But it's not President Kagame's right to determine whether Tshisekedi wants to run for another term or to extend the election. The fact is that there is a conflict in Congo, and the area is quite significant.
Honorable Mukore, we had reached a level of peace talks, ceasefire agreements, and deploying an East Africa, a regional standby force. But here is a head of state of a member state in the East African community choosing the other of cunningly trying to cling to power, using the excuse of a war.
Yeah, one I would say by the time DRC was admitted to the EAC, the conflict was already existent. This conflict has been a long-standing conflict. But I think President Kagame is not the best judge in that, because he's exceedingly conflicted. Since he's the person, he has a country.
He has a conflict of interest.
Yeah, he has a conflict of interest. And for us, in Parliament, for example, whether a current member of Parliament is NUP, another is another party, if we are NRM, we wish one another good. You even wish that the very parliament comes back, all of it, because you'll have got a good relationship. So East Africa coming together, I don't expect any other president wishing his other colleague bad. And the comment that he just wants to cling to power and he wants to extend, I think it is not welcome comment at the moment, considering the weight of the conflict on ground. I was recently going home and I got a convoy of over 100 vehicles from Kenya going for this peacekeeping effort. And I thought that this was a wonderful gesture by the East African community. All we need to know, even with those statements having been made, the East African community needs to continue to come together to ensure that such conflicts are dialogued on, concluded without too much tensions. Because some of those statements could be controversial statements, yes, but in leadership, this should be resolved.
What is missing as we conclude? What do you think is missing in this whole dialogue, engagements? What do you think is missing? Is it trust from different stakeholders? What is it missing? What is missing?
As long as Shekedi is concerned, he feels that the intervention of East African community is an important, because he's the one who sought for it. It is not President Kagame who sought for that. It is Shekedi, because the conflict is majorly in Congo. But on the side of Rwanda, I think they don't have the trust. Their main fear is trust. But I think, I don't know who is the current chairperson of EAC.
Isn't it
President of Burundi?
Yeah, Evaristo Ndayishimiye.
Yes.
Evaristo Ndayishimiye.
Yeah, because I know he is the president, but I thought, I mean, he's the chairperson. I didn't even know. You can imagine.
He is.
I didn't even know, but because he's a new president also in the chair, the experience of guiding on this conflict resolution could be lacking in one way or the other. But for me, my thinking is to cultivate trust among these people and to go slow. You see, sometimes when you just force,
you think
the M23 should within immediate effect cease fire. There is need for a conflict resolution process.
Does that mistrust exist between only two countries, or it spreads across?
Yeah, I don't think it spreads to Uganda or whatever. The mistrust is majorly among the two countries.
We'll wind up. One comment about...
Yeah, I think there's lack of sincerity, like he's talking about. And I think, like President Kagame, I could say he's also too extreme. Because I remember he had a conflict with the President Kikwete, when Kikwete was chairman of the African Union. Chikwete's idea was that those FD, Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, are Rwandese citizens. And they were parties to the conflict of 1994. So, can you hold direct talks? But President Kagame does not feel like talking directly means he's giving them legitimacy. So what he directs is that let them disarm and then surrender and say let's go. Now they're also not willing because they feel they're not secure. So it is a complicated. So all groups need to be sincere with each other.
Okay.
Otherwise, even this East African standby force is not going to do anything. As we talk, the Kenyans are just camped at the airport.
After 2 weeks.
They're just at the airport. The rest of the area is controlled by M23. And actually, there are almost 100 groups, small groups, that are not part of M23.
Okay, we'll keep tabs with what is happening across the region, and let's go for a short break. When we return, the dialogue will be looking at those issues happening here, issues around security, issues around human rights, and what is actually happening in Parliament. Parliamentary business is again into the spotlight, looking at very many bills are being passed, but returned by the president without assent. And even the ping pong that is happening between the leadership of Parliament and the individual MPs, really it is a time to reflect on what actually these people we entrusted with our mandate to go and legislate on our behalf, are they doing the right job, or possibly it is something else. Let's go for a break. We'll be returning after a short while. It is The Dialogue. You are welcome from the break. This is The Dialogue. My name is Sima Polo. We have on the show Honorable Mugore Mauku David Stephen. He is the Member of Parliament for Kabweri County in Chibuku District, and a trade unionist, and a well and experienced legislator. We have Dr. Gerard Werihe Wanzara, and Wanzara is the Head of Research and Civic Engagement at African Leadership Institute, an NGO that does oversight on Parliament and other government bodies. Let's go straight to Parliament and look at the business in Parliament. Especially, this comes at a time when people are actually trying to evaluate the work of Parliament. Some actually going to the extreme, saying Parliament is actually not helping this country move forward. Others say we can actually even move forward without Parliament. But it all goes down to what is being conducted in Parliament. We see the ping pong against the leadership and individual members of Parliament. We see the clashes. We see even the work that is being sent to the president. I'm talking about the laws that are being sent to the president are being returned. I don't know at what rate, but we can talk about bills like the excise duty amendment was also returned a few months ago. The minerals and fisheries also was also returned. Very many, and what is more recent is the Museum and Monuments Act. Actually, it's now a bill. It is back in Parliament, and the president usually, as it is the norm, he points out those key areas, and usually when they come back, these areas are not contested. I mean, the members on those relevant committees, they do not say the president is not right, is not on this and this matter. They do amendments, and then they send them back, and finally the bills go through, are sent to, while others are actually rejected again. I'm sorry, I would start with you, Honorable. You are in the 11th Parliament. One that at its inception was really giving hope that this is a parliament full of new and fresh blood, and here we are. The questions are now coming out, and they are being thrown at you. Are you doing your job really?
Yes, in fact, let me be given some time to educate the country on a number of aspects of legislation. I will begin where I was supposed to start, but I will reach there. It is on the assent of a bill by the president. The Constitution provides clearly. A bill, before it becomes an act, shall have to be assented to by the president. In effect, it presupposes that the president is the chief member of parliament, beyond any other member of parliament, because After everything has been done and the speaker has even written to the president that this is what we have resolved on, before it becomes law, the president must
Assent.
So I want to begin from there. That a return of a bill to Parliament is not unconstitutional, is not a problem, because the chief parliamentarian, who is the president, who signs a bill before it becomes law, must have gone through all the entire bill. He has to listen to other waves or noises or petitions, as the case may be, before the bill is assented to. What I would commend the 11th Parliament, it is the Parliament which has processed the biggest number of bills in a recorded time.
True.
No Parliament has ever processed the bills like that. But what can shoot the 11th Parliament is also the number of bills being returned.
Exactly.
Again, there is no Parliament which has had a number of bills returned to like the 11th Parliament.
In a certain period.
In a certain period. One, we received around 7 to 10 bills that had been passed by the 10th Parliament, which the president did not assent to, and they were thrown back to the 11th Parliament. And the 11th Parliament had to process following what the advice the president had tried to put. And some of the advices we accepted, others we did not. It's not true that we accept everything. Like on the NSSF bill, whatever the president recommended, we didn't agree. We had even to go back to the president himself to tell him certain aspects that we must now, before we assent to it. And I think I was on the floor of Parliament because I had a lot of experience and expertise on social security to guide even Parliament on how we should process that particular bill so that the president should assent to. And we had to convene, to request for a meeting with the president.
And finally it was assented to.
And it was assented to. So it is not true that whatever comes, we just agree. But if it comes and what he has noted as the president of this country is something we see, because by the way, it's not only him. He has a group of advisors, and Major again is the Attorney General, who will run back after either petitions have come and say, whereas we passed this bill, I think there has come an issue here and here and here. And when it comes back, sometimes it is the minister who complains, but that affects Parliament.
Exactly.
That affects Parliament. It presupposes Parliament is not doing its job well. And the blame here goes to the executive, the front bench in Parliament, because they are the proposers of these bills. We process the bill after the first reading. We come with the second reading, process until the third reading, and we all clap hands. The bill has been, we have resolved on the bill, and now it is going to be taken for assent. You wonder how the very mother ministry or minister for that particular bill that has been processed,
I think
to be sometimes the one.
I think the role of that line minister or ministry stops at presenting the bill, and because it goes through the processes of committee and stakeholder engagement, then it comes to the floor, then you debate it, and then you pass it. Does the minister again has a role, direct role?
The minister has a direct role. After the minister has made the first reading of the bill, the committee processes all these other with the involvement of the ministry and all the stakeholders. And by the time it comes onto the floor, in most cases, all aspects have been agreed to between the ministry and the committee. And that is why the chairman of the committee, as he's reading, they are reading together with the minister. The minister has what to say, the chairman has what to say. And if the minister has any disagreement, he has the right to put it on the floor. That in this area, as a ministry, we are not agreeable. So, what is causing this ping pong?
So you are equally concerned
Yes.
about
yes, because I told you, it is the parliament which has processed, like the first 1 year. No parliament processed bills like the 11th parliament.
But they return.
But again, the number of bills being returned. Current, even our Parliamentary Pensions Amendment Act was also returned.
So does it reflect something about the caliber of the MPs in that 11th parliament?
Not MPs. I can say there is a target by the office of the speaker that we should have a certain number of bills processed. And you have seen in the recent past having the second reading and the third reading on the same day. However big the bill is.
So could the reason be because you want to rush and pass as many bills as possible? The quality is being undermined.
The quality is being undermined, that sometimes the time given
is compromised actually.
To process a bill, whereas it is 45 days. In most cases, a bill you may get more time. You can get more time to ensure that this bill is processed properly. Now I can give you the example of the Museum and Monuments bill. The way it was passed is not how we had recommended as a committee.
Of trade.
And
industry.
Because at the end of the day, the Attorney General made certain amendments, which I'm now seeing he is writing
in the final copy that was sent to the president.
Yes. No, not the president. Onto the floor of Parliament. Onto the floor.
But you discussed before it is sent to the president. And you discussed the final draft.
Yes, that the very recommendations we made, more so on Schedule 2, of naming all those historical sites, which we had recommended that please let us have this schedule off, so that we have enough stakeholder engagement in order. Now it is Schedule 2 which is causing these problems. You are putting Klembe, government wants
under
to
protected to be declared a protected area.
Has investors who want to develop Klembe. You are putting Panyumur when government wants to do something there. You are not regarding. I mean, you have not consulted widely between the Mineral Act and the Monument and Museum Act, where in this act you are also talking about minerals. So there is no cross-cutting, yet this act would have cross-cutting issues with the Mineral Act, because the Mineral Act came before the Museum. So
you think it is the administration of Parliament possibly that is rushing the business, and in the end we get poor quality
that
business?
I can say yes, to a certain extent. To a certain extent, because we need these processed. I can tell you, we pleaded that we needed, when we are processing this monument and museum, we called it the Cultural Council, the King's Forum. But this King's Forum is majorly made of the kingdoms that do not include Uganda. But when you are passing a museum and monument bill, if you don't have the category of Uganda to make his contributions, then you know there is a problem. You know you are going to get.
Was it a matter of lack of time to do that?
Time, because of given time, and within this, the administration is saying you should finish this bill within this time. Now, when you call those people, they say facilitate us to come. So we did not have the kingdom of Bunyoro, we did not have the kingdom of Soga, we did not have the kingdom of Buganda. And those are the biggest kingdoms. And who have a lot of historical sites. That's what we're saying. Let us leave Schedule 2 first. So that now the bill is being returned majorly because of
the same reasons
and some of the interpretation.
Thank you so much. And
if I have to
conclude.
If a bill has 100 sections or articles,
it's big.
And
big
the
volume.
president sends back the bill because of 2 or 3 articles, that shows that the Parliament is doing a very wonderful job, even within the shortest time it has been given. I can give you an example. We have now...
But why would you have that short time to scrutinize a legislation
it is a matter
that will affect more than 45 million Ugandans?
We are going to address, because I can give you an example. On the committee I sit on, that is tourism, trade and industry. Last month, we were presented with a bill of consumer protection.
The trade, actually.
Yes.
Trade committee.
2 days ago, 3 days ago, we have been presented by the Competition Act.
Both important bills. Very
and
important.
You know, these are bills, not amendment. These are bills where we have to call all stakeholders. Consumer protection is between consumption, is about consumption.
Protecting consumers.
Goods and services. Competition is about companies, how they compete in goods and services. We were with the ministry, and I was moving a private member's bill to bring the competition bill. And the ministry pleaded with us that please let us go, have time and bring it. And we've been giving them time, so they brought. But during there was a petition about sugar. I was telling you, I've just come from Ginger. Now, a committee we have to make a report on sugar. We have two bills. We have to make a report on the traders who were not paid of South Sudan. And
so who is bringing all these bills at the same time? Who is to?
That is Parliament. We need the bills, yes.
The business comes from cabinet, from the executive.
Yes, but look at the weight of work put on this committee to process now these reports. 3 reports now, they are all needed, and 2 bills within 45 days.
It's
difficult.
A big hurdle.
So we would like to be given more time. To ensure that we give quality work. And like for these 2 bills, consumer protection and competition, they need enough time, and its stakeholders are the whole country.
Which you don't have. Dr. Jared Weriwanzala, what do you read from his submissions and actually from what you've been following as an NGO that does oversight at Parliament, looking at many more bills being churned out, but many more bills being returned and asserted to the president? Actually, it makes me think that possibly if we had a president who is very busy, we would have a problem. I don't know I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. If we had a president who is busy and has no time to look through these bills, we would have a big problem, I think. Maybe.
Yes, we would really have some problems. There would be a lot of petitions in that
Dr. Gerard.
regard.
Yeah, as a parliamentary researcher, one of our reports, which we last publicized very highly, among the issues we pointed out was that there is this 45-day rule, and only 18% of the bills then were being passed within the 45 days. The rest were outside. But when we engaged with the old administration of Parliament, the issue was that, okay, MPs are very busy. But at that time, we looked at 18% as being very low. So in the consensus that we had with the late Speaker, Jacob Olanya, there was an urge to speeden up processing of the bills, because there was an agreement that, Ugandans have more problems, so we need more legislations, not just focusing on amendments to the tax laws like we were seeing at that time. The focus was on amendment of laws relating to tax, relating to where government gets money or where government is going to spend quickly, like supplementaries and then borrowing. So we used that a lot to engage with Parliament. And I think the leadership of the current Speaker focused from an M&E perspective, the outputs. How many bills, how many questions are responded to, how many reports. And this was adopted from our methodology of our reports. But over time, we are seeing that there was a consensus because she had to come up with a strategy. How do we ensure that these bills, opposition and ruling party agree quickly? So she had to have consensus with the leader of opposition, that the opposition chief whip, and say, can't we work behind the scenes together, and then when we bring a bill, it is quickly passed. But the danger with it is that, you know, you can find an MP like him. He's on tourism, trade and industry. Very knowledgeable where he is. But then he's also knowledgeable about other issues. So if he's not given sufficient time on the floor to debate this bill, then his value adding role in that bill will have been missed. And also when we rush, we have different stakeholders. Like I will give an example. If you go to the Albertine region, there are so many, there's a lot of information that may not be in the possession of government, but it is in the possession of NGOs that are working within that area in the oil mining sector. Some of these reports do not find their way even locally. That's why we get shocked to find them in the European Union. And then they are saying address this, address that, because locally we have not been able to
access.
So, Doctor, you are equally concerned about the quality of business that is being conducted in
definitely
Parliament.
It does affect the quality of the bills. Because but I also don't agree that the bills should be left indefinitely. But we should give the MPs the reasonable time to look at the bills and consult widely different stakeholders. Because you know that if a law is passed, and then the stakeholders who are going to be affected by this law do not agree with the law, it will become redundant. You'll have petitions, you'll have...
He talks about the issue of time, that they are not given enough time. But again, if the bill is returned to Parliament, then the Speaker will allocate more time again to the committee to scrutinize and then to engage. That is the time again.
The time,
so we are,
the time is like 1 week, or sometimes like if it is one item, it is given 2 days. Bring it back so that it goes back to the president.
but I ask, why the rush? You somehow talked about it, that it is somehow necessary. But why the rush when it will come back, then we'll give them more time again, and then possibly the president will return it again because we have seen it. You again send it and then he returns it again.
No, for me what I think is that the evaluation of the performance of the Parliament, you know, I know this the current leadership of Parliament want to leave a legacy that we processed the biggest number of bills. But I think there should be a balance between the numbers and the quality, because at the end of the day, we want this bill or this resolution or this bill to impact
so the current
the well-being of the people.
The current administration of Parliament could be focusing mainly on numbers, not quality.
Yeah, sure, because I had the opportunity to look at the legacy report of the 10th Parliament produced by Parliament, and I've seen that the 11th Parliament under the M&E is also tracking. Actually, they have a bills tracker now to see which bills are where, which ones can be introduced and things like that. But there is the other gap also, and the Speaker has pointed out this more regularly. Right now, we have so many ministers almost in each docket. But you find an important issue in Parliament concerning that ministry, and there's no single minister on the front bench. And then it keeps on delaying, frustrating the work of Parliament. I am really happy that lately the MPs are speaking very, very strongly about this, that the executive should not take Parliament for granted. Because when they're absent, at the end of the day they will discuss, these bills are passed, but later on they are returned. And he told you that you find the line minister is also shocked about what the president has raised. So these are the issues we need to align. One, give the bills enough time to be debated. Two, ensure that the ministers responsible participate up to the end when the bill is passed.
Okay. Does what we're talking about really speak into the quality of the 11th Parliament?
No,
No. I want to hear from him. Does it make sense of what quality we have in the 11th Parliament?
Really, I should not go back, sorry, to say maybe it's a poor quality, or because we have also had problems with some previous parliaments, and also we have seen issues in this parliament where the MPs have stood their ground. Like for me, something I'm so passionate about, the coffee bill. I saw these MPs standing their ground and saying, President Museveni, no, we cannot bring a broker.
It was
a broker Pinetti.
The coffee deal.
Yes, to be here only to be able to collect people's coffee and then be just a middleman. Let this sector be organized by the key players, like Bugisu Cooperative Union. You know, there are farmers of coffee in Kasese, in West Nile, in Buganda. So there are such issues we have seen.
Why would you only pick out that coffee deal? And remember, that was a deal that was coming from a Auditor General's report or a committee.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm saying, why are we not seeing it on these matters of legislation directly? A bill is brought either from the executive. Then they scrutinize it.
But you see,
before we wait for the president to point out these issues and then return them.
No, I've already mentioned the issue of maybe inadequate time, where bills should be given enough time for scrutiny. Of course, are not all bills.
Wait a minute. Are the issues raised by the president raised by the members, and possibly they are overruled? Is it happening?
No, of course.
Because that would tell you that yes, the members, their members identified these issues, but they were either overruled or they did not have time.
No, but he told you, and which I know, when MPs pass a bill and it goes to the president can return it.
Yeah, it is constitutional.
Yes, and when they push it back and returns, on the third time it becomes a law. The only thing we have not tested in this parliament is that where a president refuses to assent twice to the bill and later it becomes law. Maybe if we test that, that's when media people like you will appreciate and say. But what I wanted to conclude with on this matter before the Honorable comes in is that when you are evaluating the parliament, look at all its roles: representation, legislation,
and oversight.
Now, the reason why I pointed out the issue of coffee, it is a representation issue. It's a representation issue because they are speaking directly on how the farmers are feeling about the whole issue of Pinetti. So I will give credit, but also, like, he's also agreeing there are gaps that need to be addressed.
I need to conclude.
Conclude.
Thank you, brother, for the analysis. In fact, if it is in terms of quality, this would be this is a more quality parliament than what you would think. One, if within the shortest time,
issues around the diminishing quality of debate.
No. If within the shortest
in
time,
public
they
scrutiny.
can process a bill, and the president can only make comments on one or two. That means quality work. Unless you think that every bill we must first of all interface with the president before it goes there, that's when bills will not be brought back. But the more the bills you process, obviously the more you are likely to receive returns for change. So I'm sure it is quality. And this 11th parliament was first of all greeted by bills that were returned by the president for the 10th parliament. 10 bills were returned. And I can also tell you the reason as to why majorly those bills were returned. They were processed after elections. After elections. That was between January and May. And they processed so many bills also to meet a certain target. And those bills, some MPs had lost elections. They were being passed, sometimes even without quorum. and most of these bills were actually returned. So it can be counted as if they were 11th Parliament bills when they were actually 10th Parliament bills, which we have processed, and most of them have gone. I can tell you one area, Article 91. It says that the president should do assent to the bill within 30 days. If he fails to
must return to Parliament.
To Parliament, it is an abrogation of. I can tell you, most of the bills that were returned to Parliament, they had surpassed the 31 days. That was an abrogation.
On the side of the executive.
Yes. But when they were returned, that is to tell you that who is the chief parliamentarian is the president.
Okay.
Well, listen, please, because I want to finish something very important, which is in relation to what he has said. So there, Parliament has failed to test its power to check the presidency. What Kenya does is the day they take a bill to the president, they go and make something like a public pronouncement. It is like a party that we have brought this bill, and they track that on the 30th day, if the bill is not assented to, they will be following the president and say, today.
Why are you not doing that?
That's what we need to bring.
Okay.
So that the president is aware that this is something that must be done. Otherwise, that section is being abrogated.
Okay.
And two, whereas we always say since the president has not returned the bill within the 31 days, so it should become law. We have never tested.
We have never tested. Honorable, one comment. Okay, you had a comment?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yes. After elections, 2021, the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga, the Speaker, I think she looked at the backlog. Then she decided to speeden up the passing of bills. About 20 bills were processed within a very short time. And that's the bulk of the bills that were returned. But
that's also unfair for a leader or an administrator to do such unknowingly, well aware that these bills are
and that's why for the
poor quality
NRM,
and will not actually stand the test of time.
Who had gone through, when we went for retreat in Chankwas, we did not have the other colleagues who were in the 10th Parliament. And there was almost a clash between the president and the speaker then, because the speaker was saying, I must finish business here. And the chairman of the party wanted the MPs to be inducted.
Honorable, briefly, in just 2 minutes, talk about the clashes we see on the floor of Parliament between the chair, it could be the speaker or the deputy, with members, individual members of Parliament, especially from the opposition. We saw that this week, Honorable Francis Zaki, I may use the word clashing with the chair, Right Honorable Thomas Tayewa, on a matter of abductions and of procedure actually. And this culminated into the speaker, the deputy speaker, issuing fresh guidelines on how MPs should conduct themselves. I mean, the rules of procedure are presented on the first day you come to Parliament, and we expect you members of Parliament to be well, acquainted with the procedural. With the procedure of Parliament, just in 2 minutes. Is it a matter of concern?
A matter of concern, obviously. The rules of procedure is a Bible, is a dictionary, but you'll even find a pastor. First of all, checking in the Bible certain verses before.
No, consulting is different from flouting.
Yes.
It is different.
And that's why whenever we have to check and say which rule should I use here. First of all, what Honorable
Francis
Zaki was presenting was a very genuine matter of national importance. But according to the rules, he brought it as a procedure. That was not a procedure.
Which was wrong.
It was wrong. So whereas the speaker had allowed him to raise the matter, when the speaker realized that he is not on a procedural matter, he is on a matter of national importance, that's why he was telling him, okay, first of all, sit and I guide. that either you bring it as a matter of national importance,
And he refused it.
other than bring it as a procedural matter.
And he was even sent
because
to
procedural
the
matter
disciplinary
is on
committee.
either the current speaker and you are bringing a procedural matter, or before the beginning of the meeting, I mean the session, that you are bringing a procedural matter that shall guide.
That's actually smuggling.
Yes. So he smuggled himself into, and he refused. So that is really, that's why he was sent
To the disciplinary, rules and disciplinary committee.
yes. Because his action was not correct, was not parliamentary, and he did not show the decorum of what should be done in Parliament.
Okay, Dr. Chirat, talk about that ping pong we usually see on the floor of Parliament, and at times it culminates into commotion, and as you saw, I think which is unnecessary.
Yeah, I saw this matter. I absolutely agree with the Honorable. There was an issue on rules that Honorable Zake did not observe either, because of the gaps in, but he's a senior member of Parliament, because this is his second term. I'm sure he knows when to rise up on a matter of national importance or when to raise a procedure, and he must be knowing what a definition of a procedural matter is. So sometimes, basically, it could be individual character of a person, but of course the issue was raising was important.
Was important.
Because we saw in the news some people had been arrested, abducted, and it was a genuine concern. But if you violate rules, the only issue where I disagree with the Deputy Speaker, who was a speaker at that time, is that when rules, because he said, if I'm to quote him, that Honorable Zake, you have even missed over 10 what? Over 10
Sittings.
plenary sittings, and you are just here. You have been handling like a brother, but then you don't. I think there's no brotherhood here. What should happen? The rule is very clear.
Yeah.
If a member of Parliament consecutively misses
Without reason.
15 consecutive plenary sittings without accounting for his time where he went, he should be referred to the committee and explain. But we are now following the same precedent. I'm sure it's not Zake alone. There should be others. In the last Parliament, we had Honorable Judith Babirye. She abandoned the Parliament, went and stayed in Canada. She was singing. We are seeing her on Facebook all the time. But she was pocketing salary until the term of the end. That is corruption. That's cheating the taxpayer.
So go back to the conduct of individual MPs and how the administrators of Parliament are handling the matter. I even heard the Deputy Speaker then in chair saying, if you, and it's not the first time, telling a member of Parliament, if you want to do theatre here, there is a National Theatre across the road. You go to National Theatre.
I think he was, you know, it's human to get angry.
He got personal.
He got personal. But there are issues also on induction. I've interacted with a number of MPs, especially new ones. They know when the Parliament came in, there were a lot of things around. The induction was very brief. Then towards the end of the first year of Parliament, there was also a brief kind of orientation after realizing gaps. But why can't we plan this to be systematic, periodic? You know, in the DGF supported project, Africa Leadership Institute with UMI, we developed modules on, you know, capacity building on parliamentary business, about 8 modules. We thought if we partnered with the Institute of Parliamentary Studies and the Parliament, we could do this better for members of Parliament, including other members of the public who would want to learn more about Parliament. So maybe we need to improve. So we can't take it for granted. It's like in the church, we all use the Bible, but how many of us read the Bible to understand it?
So, Honorable, you think, or you also agree that individual members really need to be inducted more and refresher trainings on how to conduct themselves, on how to conduct business on the floor of Parliament?
In Parliament, the election for members of Parliament, the minimum qualification is A level.
Yeah, A level.
So some people lack exposure. For me, I can be lucky. This is the first time, my first time in Parliament. But you find even other colleagues calling me senior. It's because of the exposure I have had I have been a CEO for over 20 years. So even when I'm expressing something either in parliament or on the floor or whatever, I am not speaking as somebody who lacks anything too. But we have colleagues actually who needs a lot of training. Even if they can read these procedures, but they don't pick out exactly what to get. And the problem we are having is time.
Okay.
Listen, my brother. Time. Because if you are giving an MP 2 minutes to speak, for me, I thought we would divide really.
But
and
again,
let us have 100 members of parliament.
Exactly. Takes us back to the number of
And
MPs.
when you are speaking, at least you be given, only if you don't have words, be given up to 5 minutes to express. And also, if the matter being discussed, we have people who are experienced in this particular aspect. If I'm an expert on an issue, I'm trying to guide parliament, I should not be given 2 minutes like any other person. Because for me, anything,
so the
anything
rules,
on tourism,
the
for
rules
example,
should change.
yes, anything like on tourism. If you wanted a moving dictionary, I am. As far as the country is concerned, I've been the chairman for hotel, restaurant, and catering for Africa for 15 years. Tomorrow I'm going to Benin. I've been nominated to be the president of IUF for Africa. So the experience I have in that area, if I'm to speak on the floor of parliament, I would really be guiding on an area. What should we do here and there? So there is need for that time so that others can pick.
Okay. Winding up one comment. So you think, you also agree that the rules should change, the composition of parliament should, not only the composition, but even the size of parliament should change to get quality out of our parliament.
Yeah, the composition, we presented to parliament what we call citizens feedback, you know, when we disseminated the report on performance of parliament. Among the concerns the citizens had about what the size of parliament, and then in fact some of them in the regions we went recommended, instead of having 529 in one parliament, probably let's create 2 chambers of the House and the Senate. So the House is smaller and the Senate is much smaller, but the quality of the bills can also be improved by the upper house, by the Senate. Instead, because 2 minutes really, we saw, and yet people can actually improve over time. I saw a female member of parliament, either she was from Masaka,
yes.
She was a noob.
Yeah,
the first time she spoke on the floor, everyone was laughing.
She was trembling.
It was because but afterwards, through some mentorship, actually there's a female MP who told me that she took her through some mentorship.
Oh, yeah.
And then when she appeared the second time, she was good.
Okay. All right. I hope this changes soon,
And
because it is very, very critical.
Just 1 minute on the same
so
issue.
please.
He talked about even scheduling under the current circumstances, that if someone is going to add value, and I know the speakers know these people,
Yes, they know.
depending on the subject matter. In Zambia, they have what they call the speakers list.
Okay.
It could be like, if you are talking about trade tourism, probably you would give him an opportunity,
to contribute.
small time, so that he sets the pace for the house.
But it's a few months ago, the leader of opposition also came up with an idea, same idea in his cabinet, that we are now coming up with a team which will actually be reacting and responding to those urgent matters, which we think they have, they are competent enough to respond to. So I think that this is progress in one side, and we hope to see it on the other side. Let's conclude with a similar matter of concerns around abductions. And again this week, the president of NEED, Joseph Kabuleta, was also arrested and taken to some place for some time. Then that's when issues of abduction, concerns of abduction came up, but he was later arraigned in court and sent on remand in Ruzira. But it's not a new issue we are talking about. Concerns have been raised in the opposition, mainly NUP. Even this week, a list of at least 20 members of the NUP was published in the Daily Monitor, who were abducted from as far back as 2019, and they are nowhere to be seen. I think that is a serious concern, Honorable. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, talk about it.
Okay, fortunately, I also sit on the Committee of Human Rights.
Wow.
And when these matters come to our committee, they are really matters of concern. That's why I told you that that's the genesis of the crisis which was there in Parliament,
Yes.
which caused the Zake to spring up. Though he didn't use the procedure, but what he was raising was cutting.
That government response from government and relevant ministries is not
Satisfactory.
Yes.
Yes, obviously not satisfactory. Because it is the executive through its arms of the executive that abduct. For example, because if we abduct and arraign in courts of law, then that has been executive. But is it arrest or abduction?
Yeah, that's the question.
There is a difference between arrest and abduction.
Okay,
abduction is somebody taken to no place you know of. But if I arrest you and take you, arraign you in court, then that's not an abduction at all. And some of the statements, every man can be arrested at any time because of suspicion or whatever. But you know what our former presidential candidate has been also stating in the media? Some of the statements may be construed to be seditious, causing they call it sedition or
Sectarian.
Yeah. So that can cause government to interrogate, because the statements you have made can cause issues in there. So arresting is not bad, but the mode of arrest,
the manner of arrest,
and the manner of arrest is what it brings concern even in our Committee of Human Rights. Why use plain clothes? Use the police.
Then what about those people who have been either picked from communities or arrested or abducted or kidnapped, and 1-2 years down the road their whereabouts are not known?
Obviously we don't condone. And all our human rights reports have even mentioned the names. Because what will a parliamentarian do? A parliament will not take the executive to, but it will again bring it to the executive. So last month we had a volume of around 300 pages of a Human Rights Committee report that was adopted by Parliament. And in fact, if you download it, you will see hundreds of people who were either abducted or arrested in a manner which is not really in line with our constitution or giving human dignity. Some of them are lost, and we have put it in the report. But obviously, again, that's the resolution of Parliament, and Parliament takes it back to the concerned ministries, and the ministries are on the part of the executive. But that's what we have done.
Okay, Doctor, I talked about Joseph Kabuleta, but we also saw an incident of a Muslim cleric. Is it Sheikh Yahya something, who was also picked? One from his home, a drone was waiting beside the road near his home. Then eventually people surrounded him, picked him, and another one was picked from a mosque. I think that was last week. These incidents are actually occurring very often.
Let's make a distinction. There are people who are potential or who are potentially criminals. It's a fact. For me, what I would be interested in is when he says, like the Honorable says, when you arrest, there is a mode of arrest which is prescribed within the law, that who is to arrest you, a civilian, is the police when they arrest you. When they arrest you, they have to introduce themselves and tell you the reason why they are taking you. And people should be taken to a gazetted, known place and have access to their lawyers and their families. Okay? Now, if that doesn't happen, then there is a problem. But there are unique cases, like for the military, maybe where the gravity of the offense could be probably terrorism. And recently I saw government warning that there was a potential threat on terrorism. Then after weeks, we saw arrests. So I'm not saying these Muslim sheikhs have committed the crime, but sometimes it's an investigative matter. If it's maybe to terrorism, instead of police, maybe they have intelligence information. These people are dangerous. Let's send the CMI.
Okay.
But where do we take the people? Now there are others, like say Kabuleta. The Kabuleta, I know, is not an armed person. His office is the Bugorobi. We actually neighbors with Kabuleta. Every Monday he has a press conference there, and I think maybe, and he has a church. Actually, he preaches there in the evening. So it would be wrong, I think, to arrest Kabuleta like in such a manner.
Okay.
Yes, and also there are certain issues that we are calling sectarian. But when actually people who are practicing sectarianism in public offices are not talked about. So instead, those who speak against sectarianism are the ones who are charged with promoting sectarianism.
I think it is a critical matter we will find time and dissect. Sectarianism, people being picked, and like Doctor said, people who speak about it are the ones who are. Thank you so much for coming, Honorable Mugore. Just not a parting shot, just a word and we go.
Yeah, I want to thank the viewers for the show. In fact, we didn't have time for any questions. So next time they should. But I think this was a wonderful dialogue today because it touched on a number of aspects. In fact, you have taken us globally. And I'm happy. So if you did have some ideas, you would miss. But I'm happy that we have concluded well, and I suppose that we have given to the public what they ought to have.
30 seconds.
Suddenly, the whole country looks like a very big construction site because of the reflectors, border. But it is good. Let it continue because actually we can see them now. Even if they cross the way they always do, we are able to see them quickly.
Viewers, I must apologize that we did not find time to look at your comments, but we encourage you to keep pushing those comments on our social media platforms. We'll have time to look into them possibly next week. My name is Simapolo. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much, Honorable Stephen Mgole. Thank you so much, Dr. Gerard Weliwansala. My name is Prince Apollo. Let's meet next Saturday. The dialogue is out now. Good afternoon and a splendid week ahead.
Soul Television.